Hello, here's ZAPY speaking. This week, President Trump has the other meltdown, hashtag Trump meltdown. And this time, it's a correspondent with a reporter and it ends up with Trump walking off the podium. And let's see what's happening and how well or poorly Trump handled this crisis. Do we have any major point we want to mention, come across to our audience, Aaron?
I see. I'm looking at a little more about just the speaking side, and what I'm seeing is from some things from both the reporter and from Trump himself. So from Trump, he does a good job of using body language in a very specific way. His language is often confusing, but his body language always displays confidence. And for the reporter, she actually does a great job of being kind of what I'll call emotionally consistent across different methods of delivery. And all that really complex sentence means is that she says things the same way as her voice shows, her face rather shows they should be said. Whoops, messing up my words. But her face says one emotion and her voice says the same emotion. And that's really important. So let's take a look here and see what we can see.
Great, let's keep this point in mind while we watch the short video.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Said many times that the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if everyday Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing.
So just to address the body language thing first. The way Trump stands, and I'll see if I can imitate it here.
Never be entertained.
The way he stands, some people when they stand at a podium, I've got to get a little lower. I'm gonna use my chair. The way some people stand at a podium is their hands are close together. And this makes it seem like, it doesn't seem like anything really, it seems normal, but Trump always stands with his arms farther apart, which means he's taking up more space, which tends to indicate confidence. And even when he points at something, it's always a big movement. Right? Most people when they point just kind of like that. He's always fully extending. So he's taking up more space, which is one way of showing confidence. We think about big body language, so I take up a lot of space. These sleeves are too short. Takes up a lot of space and it shows confidence, right? Whereas smaller means less confidence. So I think he does a good job of taking up more space like that. The thing I'll mention for the reporter, and she's got a mask on, so you can't really see a lot of emotion on her face, but she actually communicates emotion really well with what the face that's left around the mask. So eyes and I guess kind of eyebrows, and then her voice as well. And she's showing confusion and mild concern would be the emotions I draw from that. So when we're confused, we narrow our eyes, we tilt our head, we lean in a little like, what? And her voice gets higher and she says, oh, well, why is it a competition? And you can hear we don't want to get too close to the, but ultimately, through her voice and her facial expression, she's showing very consistent emotion. And this is super important. Sometimes when I'm working with students or someone who I'm coaching in terms of speaking, their voice will say one thing and their face will say another. And this is really confusing. An example would be if someone says something like, I'm really happy, or I'm really happy. So our voice may say one thing, I'm really happy. So we've got the higher voice, but our face doesn't say anything at all. Or if you get even worse, where I've had people do this, where they're smiling and they say something, like, and my dog died, right? And it's super emotionally inconsistent. So we need the words we're saying, the face we're making, and the voice we're using to be emotionally consistent. I think the reporter in this case does a great job of having that emotional consistency across the board. Because if we don't, it's really weird for people. It's jarring to see like, I'm depressed, right? It's weird, or someone says something, I've never been better. It's a really weird thing to see. There's that dissonance almost that you see. So I think between the two of them, they do some very interesting things with body language. Trump showing that confidence of the big body language, and the reporter showing like that emotional consistency, if you will.
Yeah, Trump typically doing this big body language. All he wants to do is to project confidence. He wants to act like he's the big dog in the yard. All right, I'm a big people. I'm gonna hold up the space, as much space as I can, and that's to project dominance.
Yeah, and I mean, I think confidence for that reason is not a good reason to be confident, but to give them credit, I think it's a good habit in speaking to make sure we are willing to take up some space, because as the speaker, we need to be the leader. We need to be in control. So if we don't take up that space, if our shoulders are in, our hands are crossed, or our arms folded, hands together, we aren't broadcasting confidence. So and having your arms out, your shoulders back, your chin up, these are all important things for demonstrating that I'm not afraid of anything here. I'm confident, I'm in control. Whereas when we do close up the body language, all of a sudden we lose that feeling of confidence. So people are like, oh, they're scared, they're nervous, they're no longer credible. They aren't, as you say, the big dog, right? So as much as I do think that if you're using confidence for dominance, I think it's a mistake. But if you're using confidence for communication or confidence for control of a space as the speaker, I think that is a good reason. What I would really like is to see both of these two speakers perhaps combined, where you see emotional consistency and less. I do find Trump's language is often very confusing. So the way he answers the reporter's question is really confusing to me, because she asks why he's doing something and he says like, oh, everyone does that, or everyone, be like her question at why, like, people are dying, why are you treating this as a competition? And he says something, people are dying everywhere, and that's confusing. It doesn't really make sense to me. But so that's kind of neither here nor there. You do want consistent, in, like, I guess, informative language that isn't confusing. But I do think that it's important to have good body language overall, because good body language really broadcasts credibility and emotional consistency.
Yeah, that's so true. You mentioned one point of the word Trump use is really confusing for a lot of people. I think many people out here do feel that way. But for this particular question, I do feel the reporter is throwing a difficult question at Trump. He's basically saying, why you still talk about the numbers, how many testing US has done when people are dying, which is more important than why don't you talk about more about how to save life? So that's kind of question of, try to make a trouble just to be a bit fair. So do you think the tactic Trump used to respond to this question is try to dodge this difficult and challenging question and talk about something else he wants to talk about?
I mean, it's very possible that's what he's doing. And I mean, that's often the stereotype politicians get, is that they don't answer any questions. Although I actually think not answering a question is ineffective, because here, I'm not a genius, nor am I a politician, but I can think of some good ways of answering that question that are going to be less confusing and are going to probably spin things better. For example, if instead of saying something like, oh, people are dying everywhere, which was his response, or the start of his response, he of course has a longer response than that. I would probably, if I were in his position for the 10 seconds or 20 seconds he takes to answer, I would probably say something in line of, well, I'm trying to make it feel like we're making progress, so people have a more positive outlook, because I want things to be more positive, and I want people to have a positive outlook so we can keep moving forward and fighting this disease with confidence, as opposed to depression or exasperation. And that answer isn't perfect. That's something I came up with on the fly, but I think it's a better answer as opposed to dodging a question. And to his credit, it is a very tough question. It is not an easy one, because it's somewhat pointed at him specifically. Why are you doing this, right? Which does make it feel like an attack, and some people don't respond well to attacks. But it's a tough one. I think there are better answers that involve less confusing language. But I also think it is not an easy question that is using very pointed language.
Right. Let's just say, in this perfect world, in the other universe, what if this reporter just want to really get to the honest answer of why or how US test, and what is the plan for US to test more and more people? How should she ask? I believe she does have the capability to ask the question, but she chooses not to because she has her incentive, which is okay. But how would she word it to ask a more proper question, less political driven?
I think you gave a great example of being very specific. So when we ask a question that wants a detail-oriented answer, we need to be super specific for what details we want. And like you said, if she said, okay, how are we going to implement this testing? How are we going to make this happen? You say we're going to do all this testing. How's it going to happen? And once again, using that word, you say we're going to do all this testing makes it pointed, but we're supposed to do all this testing. How is it going to happen? That's something that's everyone, we are, so it's not pointed. We're supposed to do this testing. How is that going to happen? That might have been a better way of getting to the answer that you are looking for, Yang Fun. But I think she
knows what she's looking for.
No, and that's not what she's looking for. She's looking, I don't think she, I mean, and this is just based on me reading that emotional consistency, and who knows, maybe that's part of an act. I really couldn't tell you. I don't think it is part of an act. The way she presents it seems very genuine, like she's actually confused, like, why are you being competitive with this? So her question to me is coming from a place of, why are you really competitive with this? This is really weird. I don't like this. It's the emotion of confusion and concern, right? Whereas with your question, what you're looking for is information, right? You're saying like, great, this is what we've said. How do we achieve that? And there's also a very different emotional delivery there of, great, you've said a lot of stuff. I need background information. It's much, in a sense, less emotional, or it's less emotionally charged. There's still emotion there because pretty much everything we say has some emotion to it, but it's less emotionally charged.
Yeah, that is true. Emotion is like double-edged sword here. And the reporter in this case used to kind of grill Trump. And in a big personal sense, but I believe in the other universe, again, if we drop on this crazy politic drive, if we just want to get the right answer, we can ask differently. And ZAPY Speaking here want to tell the audience how to get to their place. Whether or not you want to use this tactic for political drive incentive, that's up to your personal choices. Okay, here's the toolkit, and we provide a toolkit for you. And how you use it, that's up to our audience.
Speaking like any tool, like any
tool.
A hammer can be used to build a building or, kill somebody. You just got to use it properly. Great. And not kill people. That's proper. I just want to be clear on that.
Yeah. So I think that's a wrap up for this short video clip. We just want to show how the reporter have an emotion consistency of a facial expression, or her question, and how Trump tried to project a confidence as a speaker. The interesting thing is projecting confidence is the first step in the public speaking. A lot of beginner start of speech of being really small. And therefore, Trump is one example to look into a confident speaker here. I don't know if Aaron have something more to add on as a conclusion for this video clip.
I think you covered it pretty nicely. I do think that the one other thing we talked about a bit was just about clear language and things like that. But that is super individual. I gave my attempt at an answer, which when I look back on it, wasn't that great of an answer. But ultimately, clear language, I think, is important. But the goal of the language is also relevant. And that's something we covered a little bit as well.
Okay. So next, the ZAPY Speaking episode about a small confidence between a president and a reporter. I hope we learn about the tactic, and how they deliver the question, how to respond to the question, and how to use the words or body language in between. This is ZAPY Speaking. See you next time.
Bye.